Russia launching unprecedented drone attacks on Ukraine. We saw the pictures there. We can see them again, both by air and on land. We're told that the sound of sirens and the booms of air defenses have become a constant presence across Ukraine's cities. One can only imagine what sort of impact that is having on the civilian population there in Ukraine. Meanwhile, of course, we're hearing from Washington that they're now confirming that the North Korean troops have indeed joined the war in Ukraine and have begun engaging in combat operations alongside Russian forces. Of course, whilst that is taking place, the question obviously is how the Ukrainian army are reacting or responding to that, how they're coping with what is clearly now, from all sort of intelligence reports, a massive Russian onslaught. And of course, there is the other aspect of it, which is the political tide that appears to be surrounding Ukraine at the moment, with Donald Trump apparently now readying to get into the White House and opposing the war in Ukraine. Well, I'm told that we now have Dr. Marek Laskiewicz, so let's go straight away to him. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, Dr. Laskiewicz. He is, of course, a European affairs analyst. He's joining me from London. What do you make of this confirmation from Washington that the North Korean troops have indeed joined the war and have begun engaging in combat operations alongside Russian forces?
It confirms everybody's worst fears that what is happening now is that North Korea has entered and is helping Russia, which means that Russian manpower has been boosted. And so Russia can either have a very big thrust in eastern Ukraine, or, as it appears to want to do, have a double front, namely eastern Ukraine, and also recover the Kursk incursion area.
And of course, we mentioned earlier that Moscow's forces are pressing along all the fronts. Of course, you know, North Korea joining them in that war. I mean, do you have any sense of how Ukraine is coping with this sort of massive Russian attack that we're hearing about at the moment?
The central problem is actually not just the attack, it's Ukrainian morale. The problem with the morale is that Trump is coming, and that is the key problem for Ukraine. And that therefore the reports are not so much that the troops are cracking, but the Ukrainian morale is falling. It follows that because winter is coming and Russia has all these troops, is making this massive attack, that will be the central feature. Another aspect of it is that Russia wants to take as much territory as it can now before any peace talks start.
Well, that's interesting. And I mean, let me take you up on that Trump sort of angle that you brought in there, because as you said, everyone is waiting to see how Mr. Trump will approach this war when he re-enters office in January. I mean, we saw Antony Blinken, the US Secretary of State. He's been at NATO headquarters reassuring European leaders amid concern about how Donald Trump might impact the alliance and, you know, sort of when he reassumes the presidency. I mean, are they right to be worried?
Yes, they are. And secondly, nothing he says, that Blinken, will actually put off the key point that Donald Trump, when he comes in, has his own ideas, and that therefore anything he says is a step from being irrelevant. Everybody is now just waiting for Trump. And therefore, we have a situation of about 2 months in which, please note, there is effectively a lame duck president, a powerless president-elect. And so for 2 months, Russia can press on all fronts. And therefore, this is what I was saying before, that they can recover and take even more territory. But also, the key point is no one knows, no one wants to commit themselves too far because no one has a clue what Donald Trump is going to do. And that therefore, on the whole, this means the West is, in a sense, wavering, and hence the fall in Ukrainian morale too. So what you had then, the program Blinken and Biden, is only of secondary importance at best now.
And of course, talking about Ukrainian morale, we're hearing that Russia has launched this unprecedented drone attacks on Ukraine. The latest figures that came out was that they'd launched at least 2,000 drones in October alone, and almost half that number so far this month. I wonder what sort of impact you're hearing that that's having on the civilian population in Ukraine.
It is slowly eroding morale in that respect, but there was another aspect. They also launched a missile attack. All this indicates one thing, that Russia is making a huge effort now, which may result, at the very least, in their having more territory before peace talks commence. And at best, it may mean that Ukraine faces a very severe defeat, because it can't really compete on all these fronts now that Russia has ever more troops at her disposal.
Right, it's all very interesting. I want to thank you very much indeed, Dr. Marek Laskiewicz. Unfortunately, we haven't got you in vision, which is, you know, I mean, we could hear you very clearly, but we've got a picture of you up on the screen. So we can see an image of you, but we can't actually see you visually live. But as always, we could hear you, and we appreciate your analysis very much indeed. Dr. Marek Laskiewicz is the European Affairs analyst who was talking to me on the line there from London.